going on, everybody? Welcome to the Four Horsemen Sports Podcast. My name is Chris. I will be your host for today's episode. It is September 18th, 2024, and we have a lot to talk about. It was a chaotic week in the NFL. But before we get into some of the topics that we're going to go into, this is our first episode for Four Horsemen Sports, and I kind of just want to introduce you guys to the panel, just run down some of the people or the people on the panel and their credentials. So we have J-Rob. He works with Sports Illustrated, covering the Los Angeles teams over there. So he's doing a great job over there. MJ, he's in school right now, journalism school. He did some work with TNT, the NBA on TNT. We have another gentleman.
FS1 as well. Don't forget FS1 too. We gotta throw that in the mix. He covered the Olympics as well too. We gotta also throw that too.
Hey,
coming up for summer, covering the Olympics a little bit as well.
See, because I'm getting to a joke here, and I think you guys are gonna like this one. Ben, he'll be joining us in future episodes. He's working for FS1, and he works on the Locked On podcast. And my name is Chris. I deliver packages for UPS. That's my credentials. No, I have my own social media page, Cowboys Beat, on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, all that stuff. But introduce yourself, guys. J-Rob, we'll start off with you.
Yeah, what's up, y'all? My name is John Robinson IV. Everybody calls me J-Rob. I played football at the University of Connecticut. I was a cornerback, pretty tall corner. Shout out to Dwight Morrow High School, where I played my high school ball at. I'm a sports journalist, not aspiring anymore. Currently cover all the Los Angeles sports for Sports Illustrated and Newsweek. Have my media credentials. So, this is my first year at, Sports Illustrated covering Los Angeles sports. So I'm really excited about that. Catch some of my content coming this fall, headed to this winter. Hopefully have some good surprises for y'all coming up in the future. And here specifically on Four Horsemen Sports, I think, with MJ, Chris, Ben, I think you guys are really in for a treat with what the four of us can put together, especially as realistically, you guys got us all as we're starting to butt into our careers. So this is like the perfect time to get us, because you'll be here right at the beginning, because in the next few years, the wildfire is going to be massive. So get us now while we're young, for sure.
No cap. What's good, y'all? Miles Johnson, go by Real Talk with MJ. And man, I'm right here at New York at NYU, graduate student. Had like several opportunities with NBC, TNT, Morehouse College graduate, class of 2023. For some reason, I wanted to go right back to school, but we out here in the city, and I'm a Philly guy, so I do a lot of Eagles and Sixers and love baseball too. I got into that like last year. Baseball be turned, but really it's a pleasure to be on the Four Horsemen podcast and start this with some guys I really respect in this industry and some guys that I've always watched their content. Me and J-Rob been locked in for I feel like multiple years now, and then us me and Chris, it was funny, like I believe we was on our guy Trent podcast, and then we going at it. I was like, he be having some good takes too. Like I might not like the Cowboys, but shoot, like they got a little something, but no, it's good to bring us all together, and it's a pleasure to have Ben here, in the future as well.
Definitely, man. So we have a crazy show for you guys. This was one of the craziest early weekends of NFL football I think I've ever seen, to be honest with you. So we're going to start off on the NFC side, because that's where a lot of the action was this past week. So I want to get your guys' take on this. Who had the most devastating loss in the NFC this week? J-Rob, we'll start off with you.
Most devastating loss in the NFC. To be honest, I think it'd be easy for me to cop out and go by Monday's result between the Falcons and the Eagles. But truthfully, MJ, I knew your defense was going to look like that. I had no doubts by the product I saw on the field. I thought this was...
You thought the defensive line was going to be that bad?
Yes, because Bryce Huff was a New York Jet And I knew that the acquisition was not going to change life for your defensive line like you thought. You're not replacing Hassan Reddick with Bryce Huff and getting the same level of production. I don't think Bryce Huff is a bad player, but you're literally trying to replace your lead rush, your lead sack leader, and adding another guy to replicate that. When it's not easy to do that at that level. Fletcher Cox retired. I love Brandon Graham, but he's not the same guy he was at his heyday. The secondary isn't great. You spent a first round pick on Quinyon Mitchell. Let's turn some of that tape on because he's clearly a young player who doesn't understand down and distance. He doesn't understand situations yet. There was a cover two ball over his head that I thought learned in college that you're not going to take that cookie in the flat. You're going to let a smash concept go right over your head. A lot of these things we saw last season. So I think taking the Eagles is really just a cop-out because everything that we're seeing replicated with the Eagles, too many people are caught up with the offensive acquisitions on your team, and not enough people are talking about the lack of acquisition on the defensive side of the ball. I love C.J. Gardner-Johnson back, but there's still other holes that need to be looked at on that side of the ball. And so the Eagles would be the easy pick, but I'm actually going to go with the Detroit Lions. I think the part that worries me about the Detroit Lions is they're not an underdog story anymore. Nobody's preparing for the Lions like, oh, this is the Lions. People have expectations for this football team now. And in the game where you sack the opposing team's quarterback 5 times, but one player sacked their best quarterback 5 times. And shout out to Baker Mayfield because I want to give Tampa Bay their credit. They won that game. This is just to say that the Lions, whatever dominant team they thought they were going to be, because beating the Los Angeles Rams, who are by far a team that I cover closer, the Chargers and the Rams, I cover closer than any team in the league currently in my life. There's not a team in the NFL more injured than the Rams. Not a team in the league. Half the team is inactive or on IR because they do not have a squad. So beating them in your home opener was never going to impress me. However, going on back in your home, not able to beat Tampa Bay, who you beat a season ago in the playoffs, who really look like one of the sleeper teams in the NFC right now. Those are the type of matchups that show you the type of team that they're going to be, and that kind of gives you an outlook on the rest of the season. And so this idea, the defense still, to me, secondary, still a little suspect. I don't know if the offensive line is still as dominant as it was a season ago. So we're going to have to see how this team unfolds because very much so this could have just been a bad game by the Lions. But I do think they need to be prepared that they're going to go through an NFL season where every team, NFC or AFC, looks at you as a potential Super Bowl NFC championship contender. So you're going to get that respect by every team you face. You are no longer an underdog. And so you need to head into these games with an attitude of knowing that we are considered one of the top teams in this league, and teams are going to treat us as such.
Yeah, and one thing that I want to add on to that, J-Rob, another reason why that loss was pretty devastating for the Lions is this is a team that now has continuity. This isn't a team like, we'll talk about Dallas. They have some new pieces that they're working into their team. That's going to take a little bit of time for that to develop. The Lions are different. There are no, obviously adding DJ Reader and Terrion Arnold, those are new pieces. But at the end of the day, the core of that team is still intact. Pretty much everybody that they had last year is there this year. That's why that's a devastating loss. And yeah, they were not impressive versus the Los Angeles Rams. And you talked about it. They are a team that is flat out decimated with injuries. And I'm going to be honest with you, even if that team was fully healthy, I think the Rams are kind of overrated going into this season.
They faced several injuries. I mean, here's what I'll say too. The way that the Cardinals beat the crap out the Rams, it makes the Lions overtime win look worse because you saw what Matthew Stafford was working with. Puka's out. Now all they had was Cooper Kupp, and he was out here cooking, and now he's out too. The offensive line was in shambles, and Matthew Stafford, you clearly see that Lions secondary. I don't see it improved that much from what it was last year. So I see what you're saying. I'm gonna go a different route though. Look, y'all all know my heart is with the Birds, and they're not going to be my most devastating loss. It's devastating for me, but I talk about devastating for just in the whole league, I'll go the Cowboys. Now, before I go there, let me say with the Eagles, the reason why I'm not saying the Eagles is because of this. One thing that people are glossing over, yes, it was a terrible loss, but Jalen Hurts showed he's still mobile. I've been the one, I'm a Jalen Hurts supporter. I might be one of his biggest supporters. And I looked at him against Green Bay, and I was like, is Green Bay's defense that good? Or is Jalen Hurts taking a step back as a mobile running back? And if he's taking a step back, that's a concern because his ability to be a dual threat quarterback is a big reason why I have him as one of the best quarterbacks in this league. We see him rush for over 80 yards. That's a great sign for Philly, even though it was a heartbreaking loss. I'm going to go to the Dallas Cowboys because of one thing and one thing only. Their aura in terms of winning games at home, it might be lost. I mean, you talk about the last time they had a home game, they got trounced by Jordan Love and the Packers. I had so much faith. I told my friends, I was like, bro, go ahead, bet that money on the Cowboys. Like, they gonna win against a subpar team that I thought in the Saints that just beat up on the Panthers. And I think it's to be determined how good the Saints are. I'm not gonna call them a contender yet. Now, if they go ahead and beat the Eagles and the Chiefs, all right, now we talking. All right, I'll give them their respect. But until then, I ain't going. I'm gonna wait to see. That's pending. But like, these are games. Dallas as a 6.5 point favorite at home. That's a gimme. And in the first half, y'all give up 35 points. This run defense is terrible. Micah Parsons, where is he at? Inconsistent. I'm not even going to be on Dak Prescott for real. I'm not going because if your defense give up 35 points in the first half, I mean, what more do you expect him to put up over 30 points with his team? I don't expect him to do that, and I'd be on Dak a lot, but I can't expect that much from Cuz. So ultimately, having a situation where your home field advantage might not be what it used to be should be very, very alarming for this Dallas Cowboys team.
I want to add to that real quick. You know, the thing that really worries me about the Cowboys is that they win one way and they lose one way. You never see this team in a dogfight and they pull it out at the end. Like you saw that in the Seattle game last year. And there was a game versus the Eagles where it was a little bit of a dogfight there and they lost close. But my problem is they win by knockout and they lose by knockout. Yeah. There's really no in between there. Mm-hmm. And what that shows me is that, hey, when you win, it's because you're so much more talented than the other team and your talent overwhelms them because they don't have some elaborate scheme, at least on the offensive side of the ball. We'll see what the defensive side of the ball brings with Mike Zimmer. I'm not ready to say just yet what the defense, that it's a bad defense, just because I do believe in some of the personnel on the team. I'm going to have to wait and see what Mike Zimmer does there. But this is a real problem with the Cowboys in the Mike McCarthy era. They win one of two ways, and that's just not sustainable when you get into the playoffs and you have teams that can legitimately out-scheme you on top of the fact that they're as talented, if not even more talented than what the Cowboys are. So, my thing going into this season was Mike McCarthy should not be the coach of this football team. And I think you're starting to see why that probably should be the case, that he's not the head coach of the football team.
Real quick. So who would be like in replacement of Mike? Because one thing about Mike, it's like, you got Mike McCarthy, you got Sean Payton. One guy is super praised, another guy is like, oh, he's like terrible. Hey, Mike McCarthy, he ain't Andy Reid, but yeah, I mean, he done. I mean, he pretty good.
But I think it's not even about that Mike McCarthy can't be the head coach. I think he needs to get out of the offensive playbook. I think some of the issues is, I think there's a lot of coaches out here who are calling plays or calling defenses, like DeMeco Ryans, he's called the Houston Texans defense. You got Sean McVay, he's calling the plays over there in Los Angeles. And some guys are really good at it. You got Mike McDaniel over there in Miami, great play caller. But some guys don't need to call plays. I think that my issue when I look at a Mike McCarthy is you can be a head coach and be a lead decision maker on the field. I'm fine with that. But conceptually, when it comes to these plays, I do think at times it's a bit outdated. And I think it's very predictable. Sometimes it's real like run, pass. You know what you're going to get on situational downs. And I think that's when it begins to get a little lethargic for these offenses in the National Football League, is when as a fan or a viewer is looking at a game and we know on based off of down and distance what play you're possibly going to call, and then you're going to go out there and it is the exact prediction. If the casual fan is able to predict that, what do you think an opposing defense is going to do? These are players with that hundreds of thousands of years worth of snaps. You know what I'm saying? They have so much experience that if it looks remedial to the average fan, what do you think it looks like to your opponent? So I do think the Cowboys may not need to take him out of the lead guy, but may need to take the duty of the play calling and put it on the hands of somebody else.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't want to get down too much of a rabbit hole here, so this is the last point I'll make about it. But it's like you see Clint Kubiak and what he's doing in New Orleans. Mm-hmm. Like if you replace Dak and Derek Carr, Dak would be looking like Derek Carr right now, if not better, because I think we can all agree that Dak's a better quarterback than Derek Carr. And that's my thing with the Cowboys. It's like, hey, just because you might not have the running back personnel doesn't mean you need to suck at running the football. Your scheme, the run scheme is just not good. I mean, there's no creativity in the run game whatsoever. You're not seeing these elaborate run concepts where you have motion at the snap or just shifting guys and, hey, we're going to pull offensive guards and have all this eye candy. You don't see that. It's hey, inside zone. Deuce Vaughn, inside zone. Why is Deuce Vaughn running inside zone? I don't understand. But I'm going to say this, though. I think the most devastating loss in the NFC this past weekend was the Eagles. And here's the reason why I say that. The Eagles could have lost 1,000 different ways. You can't lose that way, where there's questionable coaching decisions over the course of the game. And now come post game, you're hearing a guy like Nick Sirianni talk about, hey, that was Kellen Moore's call. It's like now the players are looking and they're like, okay, so who's the real leader on this team? You're the head coach, but are you really the leader? It seems like it seems like Nick Sirianni has been stripped of all of his responsibilities as a coach. And if the Eagles would have just went out there and Atlanta just showed that they were a clearly more talented team on that night, you could probably stomach that loss and say, hey, it just wasn't our night. But the fact that there were questionable coaching decisions throughout the course of the game, and this is a team that we look at, all three of us look at and say, yeah, they may lack talent on the defensive side of the ball, but their offense is good enough to where they can win anywhere from 9 to 12 games.
Facts.
And when you look at, something that I think we've all talked about, questions in leadership, especially at, the coaching ranks for the Eagles. So for them to lose that game because of poor coaching decisions, I think that that's something that's devastating for that football team in the early season.
Yeah, let me say this about Nick. I mean, I'm far from a Nick Sirianni supporter. I feel like you see the same type of stuff that were his problems in his first year. How many ineligible players downfield do we see? A certain point, it's like if you keep seeing that time and time again that happened in your first year, that's on the head coach. It's on the head coach. My biggest issue with Nick was like, all right, you go ahead and go for 4th and 4 on the second drive. All right, cool. Y'all don't get it. All right, cool. I'm cool with it. People were saying go for the field goal.
Yeah,
I'm like, bro, like you got this, this great offense. You feel me? Like you got this great offense. Put it in the hands of
Hurts and all his weapons.
Let them cut. Like you can get 4 yards. All right, don't happen. Live and die by it. But then when them palms get sweaty and it was clutch time. All right, cool. You know, Saquon Barkley, he dropped the ball, and yeah, that was he definitely folded in that moment. But it's 4th and 3. Do you trust Jalen Hurts and Saquon to get you 3 yards? Or do you trust that defense that couldn't get to the quarterback all night to get stopped? I would rather put the ball in the hands of Saquon again, because he's not going to mess up twice, or Jalen Hurts. And if they go ahead and, you know, not get it, then all right, cool. Then they still got to march down the field again. So that's my thing. Like, don't be aggressive and then try to be conservative at the end. Like Dan Campbell, you see what Dan Campbell, he's going to go for it every time. And you know he is. And it's like that's his mantra. And I feel like his players, they can respect that. Then my last point is, the most disappointing thing wasn't even the game for me. It was today. Because today a report came out that Jalen Carter, he missed that first series because he was late to a team meeting or something.
I saw that too.
And so, look, Philadelphia Inquirer is a fantastic newspaper. Jeff McClain is one of the best writers in the business. And sources, you know, told him, or they told the Inquirer what happened. What that tells me is a player or somebody on the squad is leaking information about another player
or a staff member in the building.
It makes no sense. That's worse than the freaking loss, because now it's like Jalen Carter's gonna be like, who's talking about me? Who's talking about me? Who's talking behind my back? So now it's mistrust, and that falls on Nick Sirianni, that falls on Jalen Hurts, that falls on Brandon Graham, these leaders of the team, because family business stays inside. It doesn't go out. Discipline him, but keep that. We don't need to hear that. So that was more disappointing than the loss to me, because that shows, hey, all those rumblings that we heard like last year and this team ain't together, hearing stuff like that in week 2, man, that's very concerning.
And that's one of the things with the Eagles, which was my hesitation. It's what's around the Eagles right now. It's not just the guys in the locker room. It seems like that's a very political oriented organization. Like, obviously there's politics in every organization, but some organizations have more politics than the other. And it seems like the Eagles are one of those organizations where the politics seems to be running thin on some key leaders in that organization.
Well, it's Philadelphia, so standards.
Yeah.
I think it's the standards of the organization. But before we get to this last time, I just want to leave with one thing that I wanted to just say to my NFL fans, and specifically my Atlanta Falcons fans. Don't use this game against the Eagles as the measuring stick for your season, because I want y'all all to know that Eagles defensive line is not the one that you're used to seeing. And if you give Kirk Cousins 10 seconds to pat the ball and scan the field, he's going to find people open. But to my Atlanta Falcons fans, that offensive line is not going to look like that every night. That was a matchup situation. I still think Kirk does not look 100% with his lower extremity from his lower extremity injury a year ago. I don't think he's still able to throw the ball at a high level outside the numbers. I still think at some points he's lacked velocity on them throws. And for those who say, well, J-Rob, he made that cover 2 shot to throw to Drake London. Yeah, those are wide open throws. I expect him to hit those. But when it comes to having to step in and make a throw in a tight window outside the numbers, I don't know if he's at that part, if he's there yet. And so for Atlanta Falcons fans, yeah, great win. You took the game, deserve everything you got in that moment. But I would not look at that game and breathe easy heading into the future, because I really think your offensive line is going to look more similar to how it looked in the Pittsburgh Steelers game week 1 than it did against the Eagles Monday night.
Oh, so that's actually a great segue here. So let me ask you this question. Mm-hmm. Should the Falcons, for the time being, not saying that this is something that they should ride with for the rest of the season, because we understand that big time money is involved here with the Kirk Cousins decision with the Atlanta Falcons. Should the Falcons consider starting Michael Penix?
This season, no. No reason to. I think the reality is you can continue to upgrade the offensive line. These weapons. This will be a great year for guys like Drake London, Kyle Pitts, and Bijan to really have productive years, so that when their young quarterback does step into the helm, they have all the confidence in the world to help him succeed. This is like Drake London scoring a game-winning touchdown. That is great for his confidence. That was a great boost for him. So when I look at the future of this team, I think they're in good hands. I was very much one of those people who believe Michael Penix should have been a top 10 quarterback selected in this draft. I didn't mock him going to Atlanta, but Atlanta selecting him where they did, I thought it was genius. I know a lot of people hated the decision. I thought securing your future, especially when we see the Jordan Loves of the world, all these quarterbacks who have come in to take over as the starters and have had a great job at doing it, I think you can put Michael Penix in that same situation. And truthfully, I think you both would agree with me when it comes to this. Let's say Kirk Cousins and the Falcons get to the wild card and lose. You can consider going to Michael Penix next year and be fine, because I promise you there'll be a suitor out there for Kirk Cousins as well. There's a bunch of teams out there. Listen, the Miami Dolphins, who knows what Tua's future looks like? They might want Kirk Cousins. The New York Giants, they might consider wanting Kirk Cousins. You can look out. You can look at the 49ers. If Brock Purdy isn't up to standard, you might want to consider going to get Kirk Cousins. You can go all the way out to the desert with the Vegas Raiders. If they don't secure a top 10 pick in next year's draft, because that defense is going to be solid, they might mess around and win 8-9 games and find themselves outside of the top 10. So they could consider having a Kirk Cousins. So I truthfully think the Atlanta Falcons might have put themselves in a win-win situation with the quarterback, because if they decide to move on, they have their heir apparent. And if they don't, and Kirk Cousins is the starter for 2 years, it's just mental reps for Michael Penix so that when he does start, he'll be fine. And the age thing, you can miss me with it. I'm watching Geno Smith play some of the best football of his career in his early 30s. You understand what I'm saying? His late 20s, early 30s. I'm watching Sam Darnold right now play some of the best football of his career later down the road. Baker Mayfield has one of the best redemption stories in all of sports, if you ask me. And I am very fine with whatever they decide to do. But I do think if you're talking about this season specifically, it's not likely that Michael Penix will be the starter. But I could see a situation depending on how that postseason ends up. Because, too, if they don't feel like his body looks confident, they're not confident what his body looks like by the end of the year as well. You have an easy pivot to me in Atlanta.
Hey, two things I want to add to that real quick. One, you talk about quarterback ages. Like, if there's any position that I'm not necessarily worried about the age, obviously, there is a certain standard there, right? It's the quarterback position. Like, you see, I would say this: Drew Brees and Tom Brady played their best football when they were past the age of 36. So the quarterback position ages better than any position in sports. So, yeah, I agree with you there. And another thing I want to add on to that is, you talk about trade suitors for Kirk Cousins. There are a lot of high-profile coordinators that have a ton of respect for Kirk Cousins. Right. Kyle Shanahan wanted to bring Kirk Cousins to San Francisco before they traded for Jimmy Garoppolo. So this is a guy that has a lot of respect from some very smart offensive minds. They'll be able to find a trade suitor. But here's the reason why. For right now, I think the Falcons should start Michael Penix, and that's just because Kirk Cousins doesn't look comfortable. He doesn't look healthy. And you saw in that game versus the Eagles, there were some pretty easy throws that he missed. Or if he made the throw, it's like, man, if you would have led that guy, he would have went for another 15, 20 yards, which is why, like, I look at the Eagles' defensive performance and you look at the number.
That's what makes it more embarrassing by the Eagles, if you ask me.
Exactly. And that's the thing. Kirk Cousins left so much on the table there. Facts. And I have a tremendous amount of respect for Kirk Cousins. I don't think he's an elite player or anything, but from where he came from and to see the player that he turned into, I have a lot of respect for him. But at the same time, he's just not healthy. And I think that with the Falcons taking quarterback in the top 10 and the fact that he is the same style quarterback of Kirk Cousins, so the offense wouldn't really have to change per se. Mm-hmm. I think that it would be wise if the Falcons just assessed the situation, said, hey, Kirk, we're going to let you sit for another 2-3 weeks. You just don't look healthy right now, and we want to make sure that you're fully healthy.
But you understand that if he plays well, it'll be impossible to put him back in, right?
100%.
Yeah, that's a problem.
Like, it'll be impossible to put him back in.
That's a problem they could run into. But I look at Kirk Cousins and I say, man, he's not healthy. And that's the main reason why I say that.
I say, like, what Kirk looked like week 1, I was looking at their schedule. I was like, if they go 0-3, because I was like, I thought the Eagles was going to go ahead and, beat them. Then they faced the Chiefs, beat them. I'm thinking, like, all right, if the Falcons go 0-3, it's going to be, folks. I mean, you heard it. It was people talking about Michael Penix after they faced the Steelers. And I mean, yeah, Kirk wasn't good at all. He was bad, but I mean, you got TJ Watt terrorizing you. That Steelers defense is maybe definitely top 3 in the league. You can argue best, and they have a good case to be the best defense in the league. But like, there was stuff there. This performance, especially in the fashion that the Falcons won. I mean, you talk about no timeouts, 4 plays, 70 yards. We talk about 4 plays. Yes. The defense of the Eagles is terrible, but at the end of the day, you still got to get it done. You still gotta get it done. And so I'll give Kirk that. I think that instilled a lot of confidence in the Falcons, and it was an inspiring win and shows them like, hey, I might not be 100%, I might not be what I used to be, but hell, I'm better than what y'all had last year. And so I think Michael Penix can be like, sit back. I always go back to that Tom Brady quote, and we're gonna talk about the Bryce Young situation. It's like, let these quarterbacks that are young sit, learn. J-Rob, you alluded to Jordan Love. Obviously, we've seen with the A-Rods and Tom Brady again and Patrick Mahomes. Hey, I mean, look, don't play Michael Penix this year.
Even Tua had to sit, to be honest.
So it's like they're not in a position where they have to rush Michael Penix in. And again, they have a young team. It's not like they in like win now mode. They gotta win right now, or you gotta go ahead and blow it up. It's like, nah, Kirk is cool right now. Let Penix learn from a vet. And I think Kirk too, I think initially when he saw Penix get drafted, he saw him as a threat. I think over time he was like, oh, like, I can be that mentor role. And I think when he saw that his game has deteriorated too, when he's not as same as what he was, he's also going to be more accepting of being that mentor and being like, hey, look, I ain't what I used to be. I ain't done yet, but I've accepted that the sunset is near. So
and it's also, I'm sorry to cut you off, MJ, and it's also easier to transition to a mentor role when your last contract guarantees you $100 million.
Right.
100%. Yeah. It's easy to do that. And then I also want to add to, next week they're going to play the Chiefs, and I think this will be a conversation we'll be having all over again because he's not going to look like how he looked on that last drive. He's going to look similar to week 1, and we're going to be asking the question, is Kirk Cousins healthy? Is he still the guy he used to be? Because I think Steve Spagnuolo is the best defensive coordinator in the game right now. It's not close. And so once they dial up this defense on the Atlanta Falcons next week, we'll be coming back. We'll be revisiting this conversation. No question.
Hey, yeah, definitely. No, I feel you. But I want to get into the next topic here. I want to take this because I got some things that I want to say about this. So the Panthers have benched Bryce Young. I have 2 thoughts about this. One, I don't blame the current Panthers regime for doing this. But 2, the Panthers' previous regime absolutely failed Bryce Young. Look, I understand why Dave Canales said, hey, look, this guy is just not up to par. We have to make the best decision for this football team at the current moment and put Andy Dalton as the starter because he's the better quarterback right now. But that is a slight against the Panthers organization because Dave Canales is looking at his job and saying, if I don't put numbers in the win column, this guy is going to treat me like he treated Frank Reich and get me out of there as soon as possible, which is not where the Carolina Panthers are right now as a franchise. They need to let things marinate. They need to let things come together. Are you telling me with the Carolina Panthers that they're going to go draft a quarterback in this upcoming draft? You're not solving the problem at that current point then if you're the Panthers. The problem with the Panthers, yes, the quarterback's not playing well. We all understand that. We get that. Nobody's going to sit here and lie to you and say that he is. The problem is this is a terrible roster. And no matter what young quarterback you draft in this upcoming draft, they're going to be behind the eight ball because of how poorly this organization has been ran. Now, I do want to give Dan Morgan and Dave Canales a chance here with the Carolina Panthers because I do like some of the moves that Dan Morgan did with drafting offensive talent, trying to bring in some offensive talent. So this isn't anything that I have towards him. This is more so towards David Tepper and the fact that you drafted the wrong quarterback. Yeah, I understand the talent for the Panthers isn't there, but they drafted the wrong quarterback. Look, I loved Bryce Young in college, but you're not going to tell me that coming out of college, you look at him and then you look at CJ Stroud, who's like 6'4" and was standing in the pocket as mature of a pocket passer as you're going to get in college, as a 21-year-old throwing lasers all over the field. You're not going to sit there and tell me that Bryce Young is going to transfer to the NFL better than that. You're not going to tell me that you look at Anthony Richardson and you see how his athletic profile and his arm talent and say, hey, I'm going to take Bryce Young, who is limited, even though he was very good in college, was a limited prospect. You're not going to tell me, hey, I'm going to take Anthony or Bryce Young over that guy. So I look at this as bad evaluation from the Panthers, bad team building from the previous regime, and I see a new regime coming in there saying, we need to show this owner results because he has shown a track record of being impatient.
I think you have a situation, for JR, you have a situation where, and this happens in a lot of professions, where there's somebody new that comes in, and there's somebody that's already there, but it's like, that's not my guy. That's not my guy. And so Dave Canales, like you said, Chris, is like, I'm trying to get my job. I don't care what the previous regime did. I'm trying to win games right now. And as of what I've seen, how I got this job, all these guys have had very short stints as coaches, and I'm not trying to make this. I don't work all my life for this opportunity. I'm not about to be hell bent on this young quarterback who misses throws and has terrible pocket awareness to, you saw that pass. He had Adam Thielen like wide open. He could have just stepped in the pocket. He instead goes left, gets a sack. I mean, stuff like that. It's like, now, two things can be true, though. Bryce Young has been bad. He's been put in a bad situation. It's kind of crazy that, like, he gets drafted to a team and their best wide receiver gets traded as well. I mean, DJ Moore, and then goes to Chicago. I mean, that's a historically bad move. I think at the time it was still a toss-up. I don't think too many people, and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think too many people question Bryce Young being drafted first. It might have been people saying,
I did.
Hey, you might have been. I think people might have been like, you might have gave up too much. But hey, Jay.
So personally, for me, I came in, Miles, on Player's Choice. If you go back to those days, you could probably pull up the tape. I've said it multiple times. I thought the best NFL prospect at the quarterback position of his class was CJ Stroud. I didn't think it was close. We're talking about, and this is what kills me is, well, Miles, finish your point. I don't want to cut you off. Finish your point, and then I'll.
It's really just like,
go ahead.
I mean, Bryce Young, he's been bad for sure, and I don't think anybody can debate that. I saw some stat that was like Bryce Young. He essentially had like the most passes of 18 passes for less than 100 yards. It's like a record in NFL history. I'm like, oh wow, like that is very, very bad. So, and you have, again, is it a bad organization? Yes. But there's also been other quarterbacks who they've been drafted to bad organizations where everybody thought, oh, this is a bad situation. CJ Stroud is a perfect example of that. And then you see one guy change life. Joe Burrow changed life. And it's not all on one guy. Coaching and other stuff goes into account. It's a 53-man roster. But I mean, quarterback play is the most important thing out there. And Bryce Young hasn't delivered. But it's a kind of testament to what I alluded to earlier with Tom Brady saying you start these guys, young right out the gate, and you kind of see what was happening now. I think he was talking about Bryce Young right there on Stephen A. Smith show.
Yeah, potentially could have been. Honestly, I wouldn't have been surprised if he was. To be real, when I look at this whole situation, there's a few things that irk me about it. I'm gonna be honest. Like, I'm about to unleash on the Panthers real quick. So the first thing I want to say is, if I'm David Tepper, who is very much incompetent at his job, 100% an incompetent owner, I'd fire my entire scouting group department. I'd redo the whole group. Because when it comes to Bryce Young and his struggles, and he has one of the worst rosters in football. But on top of having one of the worst rosters and situations around him, and him losing his confidence because he can't even make simple throws he's probably been making since he was a 7th grader in middle school. He is 5'11", 175 pounds. He's not thick in any way. Pause. He has the stature of, he does not have a very impressive stature. And you can argue me Kyler Murray, but Kyler Murray's 215 pounds, 210 pounds. Kyler Murray has muscle on his body, is more athletic than Bryce Young, has a stronger arm than Bryce Young, moves completely better athlete than Bryce Young. We can go and look at Russell Wilson during his prime, better athlete, better thrower of the football. People forget Russell Wilson was also drafted to play baseball by the Yankees. Like, at his best was not 180 pounds. He was 215 pounds at his stature. Even Drew Brees was about 200 plus pounds at all of 6 feet tall. Look at 6 foot tall Baker Mayfield. He's about 215, 210. These guys are built to play NFL football. He has to get better with his overall stature. That had to be a point of emphasis. And I don't understand how you can look at a kid who is behind an Alabama coach offensive line at his stature, and it didn't raise any level of concern. And then you go out and watch CJ Stroud, who played against a defense where majority of those guys are right now on NFL rosters, and play potentially the best game of his entire career after putting up the numbers he did in the regular season. I don't know from an intangible point. When I'm talking about intangibles, fellas, we're talking about God-given size, talent, instincts, all of the translatable things you look for. You can see that those skills were, to me, more translatable to the league than they were when it came to Bryce Young, especially the arm talent. The arm talent was key, and I thought the size was key. CJ Stroud's almost 6'3". He's about 6'3". He's 200 plus pounds. He can throw the ball anywhere on the field on a dime. He throws on the run better than Bryce Young. And after watching that Georgia game before they get drafted, it is clear as day that he is just as mobile as Bryce Young. It's not even a real comparison in that department. And that was his biggest question coming out of Ohio State. Is he mobile? So the scouting department, incompetent. Now we talk about David Tepper. Did anybody forget that Steve Wilkes had them boys humming prior to his departure for Frank Reich?
Yeah, that was a travesty what they did.
That was a travesty. The players in the locker room, you built a dynamic. It was very much eerie. It's eerily similar to the Raiders when they got Antonio Pierce as the head guy. And now you see where the momentum of that team is headed. How did you not see that in Carolina and say, my whole team is rallying around this guy? At that time, we could argue when they had Brian Burns and company, that defense was headed to be one of the better defenses in the National Football League. That defense was great under Steve Wilkes. They were going to be young and hungry. And then you put a young quarterback with a defense and give him some weapons. You thought that the Panthers could have been a player. David Tepper makes terrible business decisions transactionally. Gave all of this to the Bears. You go get Bryce Young. The Frank Reich experiment doesn't even last a full season. You put nothing around him. His offensive line sucks. And you just killed this kid's confidence. Yeah. And I'm the head coach too. I don't care about getting the wins in the win column. You know what you got going on over there. You keep that kid in now. Don't kill his confidence in year 2. You took him number 1 overall. They failed to help. The old regime failed to help him. It is your job to fix it now. Putting Andy Dalton in doesn't change anything because the roster's still not great. So you're going to send his old ass out there, excuse my language, to go out there and deal with the same bad offensive line, still deal with the same limited weapons, still the same. They're the worst constructed roster in the entire league. I hope everybody listening understands that. So you might as well leave Bryce in and let him go through these growing pains and figure it out. And if you feel by the end of the season, when it's all said and done, because if I'm y'all, I'm vying for the number 1 pick anyway. It's a race to number 1 regardless, race to Travis Hunter. And God forbid Uncle Deion Sanders doesn't pull an Eli Manning and say he's not going to Carolina, because that's very much a possibility.
Oh, that's a possibility, yeah.
So
Shador ain't going there.
Yeah, Shador will not be going there. So with that being said, I mean, this is incompetence by David Tepper. This is incompetence by the scouting department. And the head coach, if he's the guy who signed off on this decision to bench Bryce, this is on him too, because now you're going to kill this kid's confidence, and you're still probably going to – the difference between Bryce Young and Andy Dalton, fellas, it might be the difference between 2 wins, max. Max.
But the reason why I disagree is that I think they've already given up on him. It's no more hope. He already given up on him. So it's like the nail in the coffin is right here, because I don't think you can come back from this. Andy Dalton's gonna do better. The offense is gonna look better. Mm-hmm. And then you got the players in the locker room that, I mean, even them, Adam Thielen is a pro, and I got a lot of respect for him and him getting to the defense of Bryce Young, but they see what's out there, and they see, look, I still got some pride. I know we're not gonna make no playoffs, but shoot, I wanna win something. And so I think the nail in the coffin was already there. I don't think Dave Canales makes this decision alone, given the fact that this owner, I feel like, likes to be a lot more hands-on than a lot of owners. And there's some, and he's an owner who he don't know what the heck he doing, and he be hands-on, which is a problem in itself. But I feel like this wasn't just his decision as well, but he was definitely like, he's not good right now, and the owner had to sign off on it. I feel like he had to, and ultimately, if there's no hope in the guy, put the nail in the coffin, it's like, all right, let's just chalk it up. Bad move. Let's move forward.
I mean, but this is the same thing with Cam Newton, though. Like, they failed to put anything around Cam Newton offensively. Does anybody forget that? Like, this organization is terribly ran. Like, that's just the reality. The Panthers are a terribly ran organization. I'm sorry, Chris.
Yeah, no, you're good. I want to finish this off by saying this. You talk about the scouting department. When I'm looking at quarterbacks and I'm making NFL comparisons to this guy, I look at CJ Stroud coming out of college and I say, yeah, that guy looks like Joe Burrow. You see Anthony Richardson coming out and I'm like, that guy could be Josh Allen. And then when I look at Bryce Young, I say, that guy can be Kyler Murray.
No, he can't. He can't.
No. But what I'm saying is, like, coming out of college, like, you're saying, like, hey, if this works out, he could be Kyler Murray. But if you're looking at CJ Stroud, you're saying, hey, if this works out, this guy can be Joe Burrow. If Anthony Richardson works out, this guy could be Josh Allen. I would much rather have those two guys than Kyler Murray is kind of what I'm trying to say here.
But what I'm saying is Kyler Murray is a far superior athlete to Bryce Young.
Facts.
That's what I'm saying. Like, it is Bryce. Chris, to me, there's no comp for Bryce.
True.
That's what I'm trying to say. Like, you're saying Kyler Murray because of stature, not arm talent, not athleticism, not even ability to play the position. You're saying that strictly off of his size. But Kyler Murray, can he scramble like Kyler Murray?
No.
Has anybody watched the last 2 weeks? These teams trying to get Kyler Murray down in the pocket. He can't move like Kyler Murray.
Oh my God, that guy.
You know what I'm saying? Like, Kyler Murray has the reason why, like, a Kyler Murray, even with him being 5'10", what did he measure out? 5'10" in the third when he did his measurement. Even at that size, I was cool with him being the number one prospect coming out because, one, we knew he could throw it about 60 down in the field. We knew that athletically he's going to be able to deal with bad offensive line play. And two, the kid had way more physical tools despite his height than Bryce. So that's why I'm like, I don't have a comp for Bryce, Chris. That's why I'm like, when you're saying Kyler, I know the size, but what else does he even do that reminds you of Kyler? Like, you know what I'm saying? And this is no offense to Bryce. I don't want to this is not his fault. You know, like, I don't want to say I'm bashing him, but what his limitations are, like, I just don't know how you write on a notebook and look at this kid and say, we're going to put the worst roster around him and say he's going to be, you know what I'm saying? Like, I just don't understand it.
Yeah, no, a lot of good points being made here. One team that I want to talk about that I don't believe has a quarterback problem, I think they have one of the best quarterbacks in the league, is J-Rob's New York Jets. All right, J-Rob, I'll start this off with you. Do you think the New York Jets can compete for the AFC East championship?
Oh, I mean, to be honest, whether we can or not, we don't have a choice. We have to. We only have about, I mean, this might be the last 2 years we get an A-Rod. This window is short for the New York Jets. And so because this window is short, we have to be able to compete there. Now, I will say this. The difference between him and Kirk Cousins, I think, is clearly based in when they got injured. Because I think in game 2 versus the Titans, Aaron looked a little bit more healthier. And I think compared to the 49ers game, he just looked more comfortable. Looked like he just felt like a little bit more, just looked back to being able to play football. And, you know, one of the benefits of when he got hurt was that he got hurt the first game of the year. He's had a legitimate 12 to 13 months to recover. So when I look at Aaron Rodgers, I think we go as far as he takes us. I think as long as he has veto power over Nathaniel Hackett at times when it comes to play calling, I think we'll be okay. But I think they have that type of relationship where he can be like, nah, I'm not running that. Nathaniel, we're not going to be going with that play. But I think we have the playmakers around him. I think Braylon Allen might be emerging, and we might be in for having the best, be able to compete for one of the best duos at the running back position in the league. If this kid is as advertised, I think people forget he's the youngest player in football. He's not even 21 yet. He's still 20 years old. And I don't know what's up with the defense. I think it's time for us to pay Hassan Reddick.
I say,
pay the samurai. Yeah. Please play the samurai. Because I need him to take everything he learned in Japan and bring it up on that defensive line, because I've never seen a rush defense for the Jets look like that over the last 2 seasons. It did not look great against the 49ers. Didn't look phenomenal against the Titans. We potentially have lost CJ Mosley. So I feel like, we have to get this Hassan Reddick deal done. We need the extra firepower on that side of the ball, especially with his type of production that he can provide. But I think everything's in front of us, Chris. I'm taking it week to week. I'm going week by week. This is why I really elected not to draft any Jets players to any of my fantasy teams. I don't want to be emotionally attached to any of them. The only guy I've gotten on waiver wires, I'm going to take that rookie Braylon, and he'll be sometimes in the lineup, sometimes not in the lineup because he's a rookie. So outside of that, I think everything's in front of us. Everything is a possibility. And after looking at the Ravens' offensive line and their still lack of wide receiver production and consistency, I like our chances out of the AFC right now. I really do. I think we have a legitimate shot at this thing.
And see, here's the thing, J-Rob. Before the season, I might have told you this. The Jets were my Super Bowl pick. Now, I told people after that 49ers game, everyone's like panicking about the Jets. I'm like, relax. It was a tough spot to begin with. I picked the 49ers, and I thought they were going to win comfortably in that game just because there's so much coming into place with the Jets. The Jets are going to be a team come November, December that you're going to start to see, oh, this team's going to be a real problem for anybody in the AFC. And it's because, look, that defense, it's really good. I still think it's one of the best defenses in the league. It's going to form into shape here, I think, later in the season. You add Hassan Reddick. I'm telling you, this Will McDonald kid, I think you have a younger Hassan Reddick and Will McDonald. That kid can play. You add Hassan Reddick to that. That's one of the best pass rushers in football. Like, that is an incredible pass rush on top of the fact that you have a tremendous secondary as it is. And my thing with the Jets, a lot of people slandered them last year like, oh, it's the same old Jets, man. I'm like, their quarterback got injured on the first series of their season. Like, they didn't have a quarterback. Like,
you can't win, bro.
They paid for a quarterback. The quarterback suffered a freak injury in the first series, and now they have their quarterback back. And Aaron Rodgers, by the way, does he look like Aaron Rodgers like he used to? Not yet, but there are some plays in that Titans, even in the 49ers game. You saw he got the 49ers to jump, threw that ball down the seam for a touchdown. There were two really nice throws that he had this week. There was that, I think it was the wheel route to Breece Hall. I think.
And Breece Hall. And then there was a swing route to Braylon.
There was the fade ball to Mike Williams where I'm just like, a ball's not going to look prettier than that coming out of any quarterback's hand. So, and look, that running back combo you talked about, I don't like Braylon Allen. I love Braylon Allen. He's gonna be a player. And you add that to a room that already has Breece Hall, one of the most dynamic running backs in the league. This team, they're still figuring some things out, and luckily for them, they have a pretty light schedule over the next few weeks. Facts. I expect this team to be a contender in the AFC, and I think they're a better football team than the Buffalo Bills. I really do.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm a literally go opposite of y'all. I'm not high on the Jets at all. And look, I will be fair and say you can't really judge them against the 49ers because the 49ers are top 3 team in the NFL, and Aaron Rodgers' first game back. That's a pretty daunting task for your first game back at 40 years old. But let's keep it a bean. Aaron Rodgers, 43. He's 40 years old. 40 years old. I added 3 years, but he's 40 years old, y'all. And so I think his best days are behind him. You got he had his MVPs, in 2021, 2022. He wasn't that good. Green Bay was 8-9. 8-9. And we see now Aaron Rodgers hasn't passed over 200 yards. His QBR is 18th in the league, 47. I don't see that same pop. Now he's still Aaron Rodgers. He's gonna make some great throws, and look, definitely a step above Zach Wilson for sure.
That ain't saying much.
For sure.
Yeah, you say it much.
But they're closer to that 8-9 win, fighting for that wild card than winning the AFC East for sure. Now their chances are a little bit better because of what's happened with the Dolphins into it, and that's definitely a fact. But like we talk about this defense, they haven't been able to get home. Jermaine Johnson, he's out. You better pay Hassan Reddick. I mean, you talk about a guy who hasn't played and has had like the most upside, Hassan Reddick. I mean, pay the man the way that this is going. I mean, you might want to pay this guy already. And I see this offense, Alan Lazard, Aaron Rodgers, they have that connection, but it's really like outside of Breece Hall, Garrett Wilson, Alan Lazard, who's going to.
So who you got winning the division in the AFC East? If you believe that we're going to be,
all right. I'll say I did like the Dolphins, but with the Tua thing,
their first two games, even with Tua, their first two games had you confidence in it.
I got
the first two games the Dolphins played. You had you confident that they could win a division. Dog fight with the Jaguars. Then the way they played on before Tua got hurt, that team.
I mean, I like how they played versus the Jaguars more than I like how the Jets played the Titans. That was a dog fight. And A-Rod ain't look too good. A-Rod ain't look too good.
Oh, come on, MJ. And then we're gonna go, and then you're gonna sit here and tell me the Buffalo Bills. Let's be honest here about the Buffalo Bills. Josh Allen, phenomenal, top 3 in the world at his position. This is not even about him. You're telling me that wide receiver core is something to be formidable? You think James Cook is going to come in and just run down the throats of this Jets defense? I think you are mightily underestimating the Jets, but not just underestimating them. I low-key think you're looking at this is the Jets, and I'm fine with that. The history speaks for itself. I'm fine with that. The history speaks for itself. So it is hard to get behind this. It was hard for us to get behind the Lions, and we've gotten behind the Lions. But when it comes to just the situation of the division, I mean, I like Jacoby, not sold on the Patriots. Skylar Thompson should not be coming in and doing anything. If we can't go 1-1 with the Bills at least this season, then we have legitimate issues. I feel like it is clear. Like if we go by roster, the Jets right now have the best roster in the division. So we should
I think their roster clears, by the way, too. Not only that,
clear as day.
Josh Allen is definitely tremendous, but I'm not ruling out Aaron Rodgers playing at a very, very high level this year. Just because we talked about it with the quarterback age thing, he is 40, but at the same time, if Aaron Rodgers can play 80% of what we saw in 2021, that guy is not far behind Josh Allen.
Come on now. Was he 80% of what he was in 2022? No. He's closer to that.
See, but I think that was a bit weird, though, that year in Green Bay. So I understand what you're saying, why you're a bit hesitant with Aaron Rodgers coming off that season. I just look at Aaron Rodgers and I say, breath of fresh air in New York.
Thanks.
And I think that means something for him. I think that there was a lot of politics in that Green Bay organization that were really bogging him down. I think he started to feel unappreciated within the organization. And I think we all agree here, we work better when we're appreciated by our place of employment. Mm-hmm. So I think that's big for Aaron Rodgers, and I think he's attacking this new part of his career with much more fire than he did the end of his Green Bay career, in my personal opinion. I do believe in that.
Let me say his last point, because one of y'all talked about the relationship, the work dynamic between him and Nathaniel Hackett. Mm-hmm. I don't know about y'all, but the best people that I work with, they challenge me. They ain't yes man. I don't think it's very positive to have a situation that Aaron Rodgers is going to overrule Nathaniel Hackett. He don't even respect Cuz for it.
But Nathaniel Hackett isn't a great offensive coordinator. He should.
That's the thing. That's the thing. At least with Matt LaFleur, he could respect the guy. He could be like, all right, I can respect. You really know what you do. I'm not going to say Nathaniel Hackett don't know, but it's levels Matt LaFleur, Nathaniel Hackett. Like it's levels to it. I think that's a dynamic too, where
but it's a level to coming in with and this is crazy. I'm defending Aaron Rodgers, some of the egregious behavior he showed in Green Bay, but MJ, LaFleur is a rookie head coach. You're talking to a 4-time MVP, Super Bowl champion, first team All Pro, 40 plus, almost 50 touchdown seasons. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. You gotta sometimes come on, bro. Like, that's like, and I'm fine with it because Bruce Arians challenged Tom Brady. I'm with you. I'm totally with you.
So do you think that's what I'm saying? Do you actually think Nathaniel Hackett is going? I don't think he's going to challenge A-Rod. He's just happy to be there. I'm happy to have a job.
Let me ask you this. If I was one of these, for example, let's say I'm one of these kids that was maybe on Players' Choice that just decided to come up on Players' Choice or come on this platform as a fan and tell you about your Eagles. But you know good and well, I don't do the same level of research on the Eagles. I haven't had as much experience over time, covering the Eagles. How am I supposed to tell you how the Eagles should be running their organization? And I have not had nearly the level of experience covering the team as you, or being a part of the organization. I'm fine with wanting to, change and evolve and be innovative. But I'm not I'm not taking over. And Nathaniel Hackett has not shown. Listen, I watched what happened last season, even with Zach Wilson. Has he shown enough ability as a play caller or shown enough things that make you confident of him as a play caller to just hear Nathaniel?
No, and that's
35. What do you want to do here, bud?
And that's where my hesitation lies. We're gonna see, but that's where my hesitation lies.
Right.
And here's the thing, right, with Nathaniel Hackett, it's kind of the same thing that's going on in Dallas right now with Mike McCarthy. Both Aaron and Dak both have a large amount of control over that offense. And it's similar in the way McCarthy and Hackett and Nathaniel Hackett both come from that same tree of the West Coast offense with Paul Hackett. So a lot of their philosophies are similar, which is 1990s West Coast offense, and that stuff just doesn't work in the NFL today. It doesn't. Like both of those offenses, I think, are going to be elevated by the quarterbacks just kind of freestyling and getting the most out of, honestly, outdated play calls.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, makes sense to me, bro. Makes sense to me.
Hey, but fellas, hell of a first episode. Definitely can't wait to run it back with you guys.
Yes,
I hope this next week of football is going to be even crazier. And by the way, for anybody watching, we do plan on talking about NBA and college football and other sports. The thing is, the NFL this week was just so crazy, and there's really nothing going on in college football or the NBA right now that's more worth talking about than what we talked about today. So
bunch of upsets.
And also, I just want to say this, sucks if your team lost this weekend.
Got jokes today. This is a good John, though.
Hey, we're all 1-1.
We're all 1-1. We're all 1-1. Even Ben's Cardinals is 1-1. So we're all in the mix.
Yeah.
We're all in the mix.
There we go.
We're all in the mix.
we're all a fan of mediocre football teams for the moment.
Well, only mediocre team is one in Philadelphia. That's what it's looking like right now. But anyway,
we might be in the same boat, brother. I'd be in the same boat.
Yo, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe. We would greatly appreciate that. Peace.